Kitty Genovese and 911. One of these crimes occurred exactly 52 years ago on March 13, 1964. A young woman, Kitty Genovese, was stalked, stabbed, raped, and murdered. It is speculated that many of her neighbors heard and/or saw the gruesome crime but neglected to help. Part of the problem was that at the time of her murder, concerned citizens had to dial low for operator or the local police station number. There were 5 different numbers for each of the 5 New York City boroughs, and their call would then be relayed to a communications bureau and then passed on to the precinct. Only then could a police officer be dispatched to the scene of the crime. This obviously time-consuming process caused severe delays in response times. Some even believe that some of Kitty's neighbors did call the police during her attack, but their calls were either lost or delayed by the insufficient police communications system of the 1960s. A few years later in 1967, the President's Commission on Law Enforcement and Administration of Justice recommended the development of an emergency reporting system that would utilize a single universal number nationwide. On February 16, 1968, the first 911 call was made in the United States in Haleyville, Alabama, and by 1987, the majority of the American population had access to 911 emergency service numbers. Today, anyone in the U.S. can easily contact the police with one simple phone call. Adam Walsh and Code Adam. When crimes happen in particular locations, specific emergency response systems can be especially helpful. And this is precisely what led to the development of the Code Adam program. On July 27, 1981, 6-year-old Adam Walsh was abducted from a Sears department store in Florida. His decapitated head was found 16 days later. Named in his honor, the Code Adam program helps ensure that children are recovered safely and quickly if they are lost in stores by having employees announce Code Adam warnings along with the child's description over their intercom systems to alert patrons to be on the lookout for lost children. First implemented by Walmart in the 1990s, today, hundreds of retail chains participate in the Code Adam program, and as of 2003, the Code Adam Act requires that all federal facilities participate. Adam's father, John Walsh, who helped pass these laws, continues to be an outspoken advocate for missing children. Amber Hagerman and the Amber Alert. The Code Adam program is a predecessor to another important emergency alert system that was developed in honor of 9-year-old Amber Hagerman, who was kidnapped and murdered in Texas in 1996. Her mangled body was found face down in a creek 4 days after her abduction. However, her killer has never been identified. The Amber Alert system provides repeated broadcasts via television, radio, highway notification signs, and text messages about child abductions and perpetrator details in efforts to garner tips from the public to ultimately locate missing children. AMBER is as a backronym for America's Missing Broadcast Emergency Response, but is also an homage to Amber Hagerman. The Amber Alert system has been wildly successful at apprehending criminals and locating missing children. It has been adopted in Australia, Europe, Canada, Malaysia, and Mexico, and also inspired the Silver Alert, a similar emergency alert system to aid in the recovery of missing senior citizens with Alzheimer's disease, dementia, or other mental disabilities. And the Blue Alert, an emergency alert system to help assist with assaults on police officers who are missing in the line of duty, and credible threats against law enforcement.